Okay. Gold certificate. History of the gold certificate. Now, the gold certificate is kind of a peculiar irony in that it has to both begin and end in what I call simulations. Call them facsimiles, call them reproductions, call them copies. The thing about it is, everything here that is known, some of them known only from surviving specimen sheets that may not have even been stamped with a seal and therefore had never been money or signed where that might be applicable, they're blank. So let's take it from the beginning. The gold certificate was originally signed into existence here, and it will say here, Act of March 3, 1863. However, it appears that this particular facility did not get used until about sometime in 1865. So that seems to be the beginning of the gold certificate. Unfortunately, these are so rare, as I've indicated, these are copies, and that's all we're going to have here in this particular installment. Later on, we'll get to something real. But the other irony is that when you get to the very end of the gold certificate, one is once again forced to work with reproductions for a very different reason. But in between, we'll at least get to work with some real gold certificates. For now, though, you can see how this goes. It is hereby certified that $20, or whatever the amount may be, have been deposited with the Assistant Treasurer of the U.S. in New York, payable in gold at his office in the... what is that? All right. And, oh gosh, maybe it'll be more readable in one of these other ones here. Oh, to the bearer in New York. Okay, there we go. To the bearer. Okay, there's some office in somewhere. Okay. Okay, in his office, to the bearer, New York, and then there'd be the date and so forth of when it either gets taken or redeemed. All these in this era appear to have been signed by Colby and Spinner, machined signed, not physical signed. We have in pluribus unum over the eagle, and we have some green, and we have lots of the amount here, 20, 20, 20, all that, all the way across the top, and again across the bottom. Basically, you could deposit a single $20 gold piece, and they could give you one of these, which would be somewhat easier to carry around than a $20 gold piece, with a back kind of like, well, not exactly that, but it says 20, 20D, okay. So that was kind of the idea. And you see all these elaborate designs. And from the beginning, the goldfish orange color distinguishes the gold certificate, providing there is a reverse. In some cases, a number of these things have been, as they say, uniface. So you go up to the next denomination, up, it jumps from 20 to 100. No 10s yet, and no 50s yet. So there's a 20, that's kind of a low one for those who don't have a lot of gold, but would still like to have some sort of money that's backed directly with gold. You had to give gold to them, and then they give you this. Obviously, then you could at any time take this and redeem this for the gold that was put away, and you would have it. So that was a gold certificate, and that definitely has a very strong backing with gold. Now, what's interesting, there's Colby and Spinner, the printed signatures, and then the Assistant Treasurer of the U.S. would also sign it. And then there'd be a very complicated reverse, just as otherwise. And again, with that goldfish orange color that makes gold certificates so nifty. and they had a good run of denominations, not so much the lower ones. The idea was if you're going to put gold, you probably want to put a bunch of it. Maybe you're somebody who panned for a lot of gold, or maybe you're with a gold mining company and you use these things to put the gold in the treasury, and then they'd give you these things, which would mean a lot more than any of the other kinds of money that were being printed, because money can always just be printed, paper money. And the D there is just the Roman numeral for 500. So you see the D, and they're all got the same date, the same language. Payable in gold at his office to the bearer, and then there's be a New York and a date. As you see, there's no signatures, there's no seal. Obviously, they would have had seals once they're officially issued and not just existing as a specimen note, which is the only way we even know or have any idea what these would have looked like. So you go to $1,000, and the language is pretty much the same. We have a back. That seems to be the back of the $1,000. I note that neither 1,000s nor 5,000s will have commas, but the 10,000 will have a comma. So there's the one. That was the 1,000. This is the 5,000. Same basic language. It is hereby certified that $5,000 have been deposited in the Treasury of the United States, payable in gold at this office to the order of, and then you put the name in who the gold belongs to, and the assistant treasurer would sign it, and Colby and Spinner's signatures are on there. So there you'd have it, $5,000. And finally you get to the very top, and now there's a dot in there, not exactly a comma, but at least a dot to indicate $10,000. So I guess you got all those O's, you could get lost in all of them, so you need something to kind of set them apart. So $10,000 payable at his office to the order of whoever, New York. Now, it's not clear whether the 10,000 even had a reverse or not. So this does not. Sadly, these are the copies that are available. We don't have every signature combination that these will have. And even getting throughout the series of gold certificate history, I won't try to get every single signature combination. For that reason, I can't quite call it detailed history. Another reason not to call it detailed history is going to be when we get to these next two phases, which are basically the 1870 and the 1875. Now, these would have been issued in 500, 100, 500, 1,000. This one only in 5,000. Apparently, there's no 5,000 known for this. And then 10,000. So we're missing 1, 2, 3, 4 of these that have not been issued as simulation or copies or whatever you want to call them. But apparently the similarities, as can be seen, are close enough that it probably wouldn't have made much difference. So if we go up by the denomination, you can see it'll say series of 1875. They're engraved and printed at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Treasury Department. Cool. I see these C's everywhere. Oops, there's no back this time. And that, of course, is also Roman numeral for 100. So it is hereby certified that $100 have been deposited with the Assistant Treasurer of the United States, payable in gold at has been deposited with the Assistant Treasurer of the United States, payable in gold at his office to the order of fill in the blank, and also the signature again of the Assistant Treasurer, and then the printed signatures, in this case Allison, and can't make the signature out. So probably the 500 from 1870 would have just said 1870 and had different signatures. Now for the next one up, okay, the series of 1870 is given, and you see all these 500s all over the place going up and down. There's a D and so forth. These were all one face, and it's officially stated there never was a backside. There was just a front with all this information So you can't have that goldfish orange back. You don't have anything but just the back of the paper. But here it is again. Okay, it is hereby certified that $500 have been deposited with the Assistant Treasurer of the United States, payable in gold at his office to the order of, so fill in the blank, you see, and you give it a date. In this case, it looks like all the signatures might be original. If you had an original, you'd have an autograph of some of these people. That'd be something. Maybe. All right. Series of 1870. See, now, so going further up the denomination, we're back to 1875, $1,000. Another thing to have been seen so far is the seals would have been red. Now, only the lowest of these seem to show seals. They were red seals. All seals were red until the middle 1870s, when some fractional notes would have green seals, a 50 cent from this time and a 10 cent from that. But other than that, seals were always red until 1880, and we'll get to 1880 very soon. And so the next up, now we're back to a series of 1870, and you've got all these 5,000s everywhere. The fine print on there is Gold Certificate, US, 5,000. Bureau Engraving and Printing. So, it's kind of nice to see the fine print. Again, $5,000, and then $10,000. Okay. So, the same format has followed. Now, the next phase up starts in 1882. Now, in 1882, we have the 1880, let's say, suddenly seals went to brown. And that's also 1882 is when the second charter of the national banknote began, also with brown seals. And that continued with all the second charter thing, national banknotes, clear up until 1908. So this would have had a brown seal, and its back would have been apparently in a darker shade of ink, but not this one, since this one comes a little bit later. Let's look at the signatures here. So Lyons and Treat. Okay, Lyons and Treat. So that would have been later on. Okay, so Lyons and Treat. But earlier, closer to 1880 or 1882, when this was originally chartered here, or established, it doesn't say series, but it just has the date of July 12, 1882, and all of these have that date. So there's 5,000. Now, the 1882s have one other idiosyncrasies. For some reason, they'll say, okay, there have been deposited in the Treasury of the United States, no more talk of the Assistant Treasurer, $10,000 or whatever the amount in gold coin repayable to the bearer on demand. So that's kind of unusual. And the 1882s did have backs. This, as you can see, has a rather somewhat famous eagle. The 5,000 had this, and you can see it's a somewhat darker shade of orange. I don't know if that's an idiosyncrasy of these simulations or of these, or that's because they're 1882 originals, or not original, 1882 simulations of 1882 originals, so you can see a distinctively brown seal. But every kind of money had brown seal in the early 1880s, then went back to red seal in the middle to late 1880s, and then in 1890 went back to brown seals for a couple of years, and then back to red seals. So the color of the seal didn't reflect what kind of money it was, but simply what time it was printed or chartered in the case of national banknotes. There's 1888 series that is right here, and that was only for 5,000 and 10,000. It is hereby certified, have been deposited. So it's kind of the same as the other one, as the 1882. And these were unifaced just like so many of the earlier ones. Well, in the next one, we will be working with real gold certificates. So, thanks for listening so far.